Hello and namaste. I am your ever humble and slightly wacky host, the incorrigible Mr. Zeppo. Thanks for tuning in. I know it's been a while. I took a hiatus to kind of clear my mind and reset and take care of a few personal things. And here we are. I'm back, and holy moly, are things crazy out of whack. Thank you for your patience, my friends. That's the first thing I want to open up with. Thank you for your patience. I know that this show is sort of framed as being almost a daily show, and I have not been even coming close. In fact, I've been on hiatus for over a month and a half. I lost track of how many weeks, but I am here once again, humbly at your service to entertain and hopefully provoke some deep, insightful thinking about what's going on in our world and how you can engage with it. I wanted to kick off this return episode with a shout out to everybody that has been listening along so far. On Sprecher.com, the sort of home base for the podcast, the site where I create and distribute the show, the downloads and listen-ins to the show on that platform alone have broken 3,000 some odd numbers. So that's tiny progress. I mean, I've been doing this on and off for about a year and a half. So it's not like there's a huge audience out there. There's not a lot of you listening. But for those of you listening, as always, thank you so much. Sending you lots of love and energy, and I hope that you feel animated to engage with the show a little more. Comments, questions, thoughts, suggestions are always welcome. I've said that from the beginning. Curiously, so far, not that many have come in. But hopefully, as the audience builds, etc., etc. I also want to welcome any new listeners, anybody who's really, really new. Thanks for choosing to tune in, and welcome. So, let's take a moment. Hang on. I'm having technical difficulties. Pardon the noise. I forgot to plug in the laptop before I started the episode, so it was giving me that battery warning. So, as you might have guessed, this is not a professional podcast. I am a rank amateur, as you might say, but I'm passionate and adamant. And I very, very, very much believe in the calling that we all share to engage in the public discourse, not for the purposes of proving that we are right and they are wrong, but rather for the collective bargaining, the collective engagement, the collective negotiation, the collective discernment. That's the best word. The collective discernment for the greatest good. So, I just wanted to announce that the hiatus is over and then sort of introduce a few new ideas. There's going to be new segments to the show. The first one that I've already kind of been tinkering with and soliciting responses for is going to be titled Listening to Goddesses. Let me give you the quick setup or pitch on that. I think that an honest and unbiased look at our current socio-political cultural context might lead someone to conclude that yes, indeed, toxic masculinity has been problematic for our species development and for quite some time. So what do we do about that? What's a response? As a man who was obviously kind of unconsciously immersed in the culture of toxic masculinity growing up in that era before we really started the process of arriving at this moment of post-Weinstein, post-Me Too movement, I can honestly assert that yes, toxic masculinity and its brainwashing techniques most certainly have had a massive impact, and no one managed to escape unscathed from decades, if not actually centuries worth of this toxic masculinity indoctrination. All right. Now, that doesn't mean to say that every man is evil, right? I'm not. The stupidest thing that men ever said in response to feminism was that they hate men and think that men are evil. No. But any clear-headed review, any clear-sighted, clear-minded, clear-hearted review of the history, the historic relationship between male and female as polemics in our society, clearly the toxic masculinity subset of people that it's insist in thinking that that's the best policy have sort of been in charge of things for a while, and definitely been putting a huge effort into indoctrinating future generations of males. And we are now in a moment, I think, in a moment of great opportunity, in a moment of self-reflection, a moment of self-realization at the national level, at the community-wide level, at the individual level, at the species-wide level. And given that understanding that we are on the precipice of massive change, and that change can be something that we approach consciously with heart and soul, or that we approach absentmindedly, unconsciously, with ego and conflict. As we approach that massive transformative change, we really need to rally together in order to be prepared to approach that change in the fashion we see as most positive or most progressive. Progressive is a loaded word. Most healing, not just for ourselves as individuals or for each other as families or communities, but for the entire species. And thus, I think that now, in this transitionary time, men, myself included, and all those out there that have never bothered to, really ought to step up and, dare I borrow the phrase and try to reinterpret it, we need to man up and really take the radical step of taking a breath, shutting the fuck up for a minute, stop trying to fix the thing that we think is wrong and broken, and just listen. Not just listen to each other, because that's easy, but listen to women. And I'm speaking to the men out there in the audience. As an imperfect guy, as a male who has tried his best and also failed and sunk to his worst, and who has lost friendships and relationships, and who has overcome obstacles, etc. What I'm trying to describe is that most of us, some of us are horribly evil men who are just really entrenched in some brutal, toxic masculinity, conditional thinking, right? But most of us are a mix. Most of us are flawed individuals who vacillate or waver from being in alignment with the angel on one shoulder, and at other times in alignment or being under the influence of the devil on the other. And of course, women are no different, okay? The notion that one gender is better than the other is a toxic notion. So any man ever in the history of mankind who's insisted, whether out of chauvinist intent or otherwise, that any gender is better than the other, you're missing the boat, right? Same thing for women. No offense, ladies. With all due respect, there is a significant ego trap that all men and women are in risk of falling into, and that is divide and conquer, us versus them. As with any line of division, we have to take a moment, step back, and go, why are we in conflict? Before we can make any real progress. And that's why I think, as I see other groups inspiring or trying to encourage movements of acceptance, of support, and of healing, and of compassion, focusing on or targeting specific demographics or different groups or different communities or different areas under, or addressing specific themes. One of the places I want to get to is at this deep, deep fissure. There is a huge gap. There's a massive line of conflict, and has been for a really, really, really long time. I don't just mean our lifetimes. I mean centuries worth of dogmatic indoctrination that has pitted men and women against each other. And as a man, I kind of realized this a while back, not understanding it as fully as I do now, but I realized, I think that might be happening. And I'm not claiming to have found a solution. I just think that I see strength and wisdom in those statements, efforts, and movements of the past and of our current day that encourage true, genuine communication. And communication starts by listening. I know that's an ironic message to bring. I'm on a talk show podcast where basically I ramble at you for 15 minutes to 45 minutes to an hour and a half, depending on my whim. But anyways, I digress. That was a big, long attempt at trying to explain my idea for this new segment, Listening to Goddesses. I guess one of the things I want to leave you with is that I'm not going to really get into the content of the show just now, but we all have the capacity to live up to our divine selves. Every woman ever, anywhere on the planet, has the capacity to live up to her most goddess-like self, her most divine self. So does every man. Because we are brothers and sisters in this species of interconnectedness. And as awkward as that is, because we mostly think of our men and women who are heteronormative, generally have a really hard time thinking of each other as anything other than sexualized either opponents or collaborators, right? Like we're not encouraged to think of each other as brothers and sisters in one family. In part because that gets incestuous sounding, that elicits notions of incest. But let's get blunt right there real quick before we move on to other things. If we were really honest about what the human species is, every coupling is incest because there's only one genome. And every human avatar, any human body, is 99.999999999. But let's not get hung up on that. Incest is a horrible thing in normal, pragmatic sense. People should not be engaging each other that way. But also, we shouldn't be freaking out about disengaging from the sort of heteronormalization of men versus women as sexual only. Right? That's where I'm trying to go with that whole notion. Dragging in baggage terminology. Forgive me for that. So, to wrap that whole little bit up, I'm gonna, it's still in preparation, but if you're a listener and you're a woman, this show is gonna have this sort of launch prompt. In other words, as I get ready, there's just me. As I get ready to, or we, because, you as my audience can participate and collaborate, as we get ready to launch this segment, the first thing I want to invite female listeners to do is to take a moment and think about one piece of advice, a singular piece of advice. Now, I want you to dig down deep and really tap into your inner goddess, tap into your inner divine femininity, and burn past the obvious stuff. Burn past, like, get past the sort of tit for tat. I'm gonna sneak in a little, tag against men and really really try to bring up the most profound advice you can give men. And I mean men, the whole half of the species. This segment, as all my shows are hopefully clear, I don't want it to be about raking up drama, and I don't want it to be about interpersonal details about unsuccessful, about relationships. I want this segment to be about the best, most profound advice that women can inspire men with about, the dynamics that we're all coping with and hoping to evolve or change or improve. All right, I'll stop rambling about that. There will be other new segments coming out, but I'll tease them out as we get rolling here. Please forgive me. I'm sort of jumping into it after a really long hiatus where I was circumstantially unable to devote the time to do the podcast. Now I've got the time, and I'm sort of rusty and out of the working habit of doing the podcast around my busy schedule. So that's what this summer break is going to be about. I'm on summer break for my, quote, day job. So for those of you who are big fans, I'm going to be on the air a lot more often. So, right, stay tuned. And like I said, submit your comments, suggestions, and advice. There will be a divine masculine subsegment or segment show coming up. I just haven't gotten around to creating the opening prompt for that. I might also indulge in some absurdist media reviews. I've been kind of tinkering with the idea of launching a irrelevant movie review segment where I review strange, crazy movies that are not on the forefront of what's hot and trending right now, but just sort of like, hey, I bet you've never seen this movie. Here's why I think you should watch it. But I digress. So stay tuned for more segments and ideas like that. And yeah, hit me up with what you think are the urgent, burning subjects, themes, or topics I should address in upcoming episodes of this segment and the others. This segment is the Almost Daily Zencast, is sort of the flagship segment, the title album of the show, I guess you might call it. And but yeah, I've also got breaking news, Good Morning Trumptopia, as well as others. So if you're new, welcome to the wackiness. If you've been listening for a long time and you have yet to submit a comment, question, suggestion, please think about maybe doing so, because I really am eager. And I know that the show sucks. I know that this podcast does not pales in comparison with other podcasts that are much more professionally produced. But my long-term goal is to build that following, the support, and to recruit the collaborators so that this show can be as well-produced and as slick and as sexy and as engaging as any of the top trending podcasts out there. So, to that end, I humbly ask you to take a quick moment and yeah, tell someone you know about this podcast. Someone you think might find it engaging and might want to contribute. All right, cool. Well, having said all of that, and having sort of broken the seal on getting back into the habit of producing this show, I want to wind up this return episode, which is now already 20 minutes long, and leave you with a brief and simple moment of Zen, as it were. Not that I'm encroaching on the intellectual property of what was the name of that show where they started it? And now your moment of zen. It's Jon Stewart's The Daily Show. I'm not trying to encroach on that. That's actually something that I've been a fan of for a really long time. They use it sort of ironically and satirically for comedy's sake. But having a moment of zen, having a daily moment of zen is an ancient practice. And this show is about experimenting, exploring, rediscovering, and maybe even inventing postmodern spiritual practices that we can all sort of share in together. So on that note, I just wanted to leave you with a thought that I share in my birthday greetings. So if you're a friend of mine on Facebook, you've probably already seen this. The single most powerful evidence for the theory that the universe is a fractal paradigm or hologram is that people come out of other people. And I've talked about this on the show before, but I wanted to. It's been so long. This was the one I wanted a touchstone with, and it connects to some of the things we're going to be discussing in Good Morning Trumptopia. For as I'm sure you are well aware, there's a massive humanitarian crisis that dear old 45 created for his own crazy purposes, and we'll get into the political analysis and the debate about that, or at least my opining on what I've gathered about that in Good Morning Trumptopia. But yeah, every human being has a mother, and that mother came out of another mother. And if you understand family trees, then you understand that the branches merge. If you look at a family tree going backwards in time, it connects with that, everybody's 99.999 ad nauseum of nines genetically identical. We are quite literally one family. And the proof of it is in ourselves and in our own modality of procreation. And this understanding that for all our diversity, all our differences, we are in fact truly one collective family. A deep contemplation of this helps to heal and transcend the painful, traumatic brainwashing which all of us have been indoctrinated with, which is contingent on the us versus them core manipulation. The lie that some other group out there in the world is different from us, this group that we belong to. That's a linguistic kind of evil magic. It's a lie. That's what lies are. Lies are a negative, dark magic that manifest negative, evil, dark belief systems that then cause negative, dark, evil behavior. So if anyone out there listening who wants to help contribute to a real, lasting solution to this problem, the immigration problem, the international global problem of war profiteering, the problem of any of the problems, as I'm sure you're familiar if you're a longtime listener, I believe all the problems are interconnected. And if you're serious about contributing towards the solution, taking a moment to deeply, deeply personally meditate on this fractal nature of our reality and this fractal nature of our own selves is a brilliant, in my humble opinion, a brilliant starting place and provides a massive contribution. Because anyone who genuinely, honestly wrestles with that idea, comes to terms with it, investigates it, tries to debunk it, and then comes face to face with the evidence that renders it undebunkable. Because trust me, I went through that struggle. Someone told me, hey, by the way, the entirety of humanity is one giant family. Everyone's connected. We're all one. I was like, well, that doesn't seem very likely. Because I'm very different from Bob, who's very different from that guy over there, who's very different from that woman over from this other country, right? But that's the indoctrination we've all been impacted with for a very, very, very long time. So I'll leave you with that thought, my friends. And I encourage you to contemplate it deeply and to share it, to see how your friends around you react. The next time even the vaguest of opportunities or conversational entrees presents itself to you, bring up to someone else the question or the idea or the what if postulate. What if we really are all interconnected? Then why do we let ourselves be pitted against each other? As always, my friends, I'm not here to challenge you to believe in my words. I'm not here to tell you that you're wrong. I'm here to encourage you to question your reality by sharing with you some of the conclusions I've come to after going through my own long, painful, arduous process of questioning reality, questioning my assumptions, questioning the belief systems that I was given as a kid, questioning the belief systems that I adopted as a young adult, questioning the belief systems that I'm surrounded by now. Questioning everything is sort of the beginning of the beginning. But that's a whole nother episode. All right, my friends. My humility insists that I beg you to know that I unconditionally love everybody, regardless of whether or not you agree or disagree. And my confidence insists that I wrap up the show with saying that I feel confident. I strongly, firmly believe that no matter how dark, how overwhelming, how confusing, how wild and crazy this cacophonous madness that we're living through gets, each and every one of us has the solution deep inside. And the real problem is we are not allowing ourselves to believe that solution is available to us deep inside. All right, I'll stop rambling. Gonna keep this episode short. 30-minute long segment. Boom, I'm back. The show is back on. It is going to be once again almost on the daily. In fact, if I get myself if I get my shit together and get my ass in gear the way I hope or planned out to during my hiatus earlier in the year, then I will be pumping out more than one mini episode a day under using the different segments that I have been slowly sort of crafting. But I'll stop rambling. Thank you for tuning in. And as always, my friends, may peace, love, and grooviness blossom in your heart. Especially if you find yourself caught up in anger, hate, conflict, and confusion, and distress, and chaos. Namaste, my friends.